But we got Gary Allen, who is the VP of Supply Chain Excellence here from Ryder, joining me in the booth. So Gary, welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you give us kind of, if people are not familiar with Ryder, kind of just give us a little brief overview, because you guys cover a lot of ground, I think. So,
well,
right?
People typically think of us as a trucking company, but we do
Yes.
a lot more, right? We started over 50 years ago doing trucking. Jim Ryder started with one truck, but we're a 3PL. So we run warehouses, we do transportation management, we do dedicated transportation, which all rolls up to our supply chain division. And so we run about almost 400 warehouses. We have about 100 million square feet of warehousing under roof. And then we also have our fleet management side of it. And that does maintenance, truck leasing and truck rental as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely I see the Ryder trucks all the time. Absolutely. But
that's right.
You guys have been also kind of making a lot of news and waves from a investment standpoint too. You guys are investing in a lot of technologies and making that happen. And I think you invested a little bit over $1.3 billion in new innovations is what I saw. So I'm curious from Ryder's perspective. I mean, obviously you guys are covering a lot of kind of different verticals within the space, being able to move product from point to point in multiple different ways. But from Ryder's perspective, why is it so important to kind of continuously be investing in these innovations and keeping up with, I guess, all the technology that's out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great place to be in supply chain nowadays, right? If you look at the last 10 years in the amount of new innovations, new technologies, and I started 30 years ago, we never had this many opportunities. But as far as our investments are concerned, it's all around capabilities and meeting our customers' needs, right? And our customers' needs are pretty dynamic, right? We serve e-commerce customers, we do last mile, we do consumer products, automotive, industrial, healthcare, tech. And with that, all those customers have different needs and different requirements. And, it's an interesting space because there's a lot of options out there, not only in warehousing and transportation, but it's how you connect all that information together to draw insights. And it's about how do we drive value for our customers, because outsourcing is all about we can do it better than our customers can do it themselves. And so it's about value creation and continually optimizing, right? And making better and easier decision making.
Very interesting. And I think that's such a smart thing. And such a key thing that you said there is that, your customer is coming to you because they want you to do it better for them, right? So it's all about making sure that you can, keeping up with the latest technology and ensuring that you're able to do that. And now you mentioned that you've been in the space for 30 years now, right?
Yeah, I'm not dating myself or telling you how old, but I've been doing it for a long time. Yeah.
So we could say that you've seen a few things, right? We could say that, right? So I'm curious, especially I think in the last couple of years, we look around and we're here at Manifest, right, at the trade show, and we can see, out of the corner of our eyes here, robots moving around. And I'm curious, over those 30 years, what are your thoughts on how technology has evolved in the space and how we're finding now all this very cutting edge technology? I mean, did you think 30 years ago that we'd be this advanced in the warehousing world?
No, probably not. I mean, you got to remember 30 years ago, I think cell phones just came out, right? And so I'm dating myself. I had that first bag phone, and then I had that giant brick. But, obviously with the internet, that pushed a lot of the advancements, but really from a supply chain standpoint, it's really been the last 15 years. It really has. If you look at, did you get that background noise?
Oh wow, something's going on here.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd say the majority of the advancements were really the last 10 or 15 years, and a lot of it is on the back of Amazon when they bought Kiva. That was in 2012. You didn't really have that many options, right? If you looked at autonomous forklifts, they were out there through companies like Dematic. You didn't have autonomous mobile robots, but really what's changed is the equation of labor cost, the availability of technologies are significant. It's a fun time to be in supply chain because really the last 5 to 10 years, there's so many options out there. And in fact, when you think of an autonomous mobile robot, it was Kiva and then Locus, and we got a lot of providers here. It's kind of shifted from moving product to then how do you optimize and drive productivity in the warehouse. It's not just the physical movement of that object, because it's kind of a commodity nowadays. I mean, we got 10 AMR providers or more. You got a bunch of autonomous forklift manufacturers. And it's how do you optimize and orchestrate the work for the employees? And how do you drive productivity for those employees and drive optimization in the warehouse? And so we have way more options. But the complexity is around how do you pull it together? How do you manage and own that data? Because you could have a warehouse where we have 7 different technologies. We have AMRs, we have an automated storage retrieval system, you got robotic pick arms, right? You have a lot of technology. And I think the complexity now is how do you blend that together to still give you flexibility in the warehouse that drives the results that you want, because our customers' business changes frequently, right? They add SKUs, they buy companies, they add new products.
Right.
And so you got to balance the flexibility. But back to the innovation, it's the last 5 to 10 years has been incredible. And even within Ryder, we have, in the last 5 years, invested in warehouse automation by 20x, just in the last 5 years. But, you know, our hourly wage rates was like $10 or $15.
Yeah.
And now it's like 20, 25.
Yeah.
And now you got 100 different technology providers out there. So, you know, the economics have certainly changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an interesting note there. We were talking about productivity, right, and focusing on increasing the productivity of that worker. We also mentioned there, you know, kind of the huge jump that that hourly wage has taken. Right, so I'm curious, like for Ryder, you mentioned you have 400 warehouses, right? So obviously a lot of employees there, right? A lot of warehouse workers in those, I'm sure. So as like that change has been happening, how do you guys kind of strategize and come up with a way to be able to, you know, invest in technology, but also make sure that, you know, you're keeping that worker going, but also, you know, I guess facing that challenge of those increasing wages?
Yeah, I mean, in general, it's hard to get people to want to work in a warehouse. I mean, frankly, it's harder than trucking and transportation in many different ways. And, you know, what we found with the new generation, they're more open to technology. They're not afraid of it, right? And so it's a positive. And if you bring in technology, you present it the right way, you understand, you know, the needs of your employees, they're going to see the benefit, because it's about making their job easier. It's not about eliminating all of the jobs. I mean, you could have Amazon a lights out warehouse. We have a couple warehouses that are semi lights out, where we have people inducting and then people shipping. But it's part of attracting the workforce around the use of technology and the interaction. I'll give you an example. It's also about flexibility, because people may not want to work 5 days a week, and it's getting into this gig part-time workforce. And we have an initiative where we're rolling out a flexible scheduling application, and it helps with employee engagement, communication, but it allows employees to post shifts, kind of allows them to, you know, take time off when they want to take time off, and it kind of opens up the door for flexibility. But you know, turnover in a warehouse is not easy. I mean, it's gotten better for us in the last year. But it is not easy to attract people to work in a warehouse. But you know, I think with the advent of a lot of the technologies and understanding employee engagement is key, and flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very true. You know, it's difficult to get people in there and then get them to stay too. Is the next challenge, right?
Yeah. I mean, most of our competitors are running 100% turnover in a warehouse. Right?
Yeah.
And we have about 15,000 warehouse workers that are full time.
Wow.
And then we use temps for you know, for peak and all that, like in our e-commerce and retail business segments. And so, yeah, it's not easy. But you know, I think it's an advantage with all the new technologies out there to attract people. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very interesting too. I mean, it's so important to be able to embrace that technology. Like you said, the newer generation, to try and get them to want to, in some way, come into the warehouse, right? I think we have to like be adaptable to that and be able to allow them to see like, okay, when I go to work, like it's not too different than when I interact with devices in my personal time,
That's
right?
right.
And I think that's such a great way to be able to do that. I'm curious, how have you guys, as you invested these technologies, brought them in, how has that maybe shifted the way that you train employees or like onboard employees to be able to coexist and work with this technology?
Yeah, no, it's a great point, because with all the new technologies, it makes the onboarding process even harder.
Yeah.
Right? It used to be, hey, bring them in, train them on how to, unload, load, operate a fork truck, and you still have to do all the basics.
Yeah.
But it's more around the technology, and really the first few days, first week is onboarding, and all you're doing is like a conference room training where you're walking through. But most of the technology is fairly easy to use and intuitive. I mean, we use Locus AMRs as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, the trade takes like minutes. It's not overly complicated. It's pretty intuitive. The UI, the experience is pretty straightforward. I think the complexity is we have so many different technologies, but the way we do it is by persona or use case. So if we have people doing picking, we'll train them on Locus. We do train everybody on how to use our flexible scheduling app, because it allows us to do chat, push communication out around shift start, even like updates on the weather, right? Gives them a heads up.
Oh, that's nice.
The challenge with that is most of our warehouses don't allow employees to use their cell phone in the warehouse.
On the floor, yeah.
On the floor. So we have kiosks, and then we, bring it up into, some of our handheld scanners as well. But yeah, onboarding is critical, because, what you don't want to do is have a bad employee experience day one.
Yeah.
Because they'll leave.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really requires a lot of investment in training, change management, and technology as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's such a great point about day one, right? Because the thing is, right, where we have warehouses, right, there's a ton of warehouses.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like they have a bad experience. It's not like, I can't leave because I'm gonna have a hard time finding a job. No, they'll probably have a job in the next 2 days, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that competitive, right?
They'll go down the street.
Yeah.
Amazon's going to pop up another warehouse, and you may pay, 5 cents more an hour or 10 cents more, and people will jump for that. And so it's about the experience, it's about the culture, it's about doing more social events, bringing food in, lunch. I mean, it's just you got to care about your employees no matter what they do.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely, and that's very, very true. So we talk about all this technology, and we're surrounded by technology here too at Manifest as well. I'm curious from your perspective, what technology in this space right now is the most exciting to you, maybe most top of mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think AMRs, autonomous forklifts, are kind of out there and more of a commodity. I think the exciting technology is getting into more robotic picking, robotic unloading, loading. I think that's kind of unproven. There's still kind of working with a couple different providers on that space. I think the biggest opportunity is around the data analytics and the optimization of workflow in a warehouse. So now that we have the technologies, it's what do you do with that? How do you optimize your waves? How do you optimize productivity in the building? I think the use of data analytics, now that most of the devices are being somewhat of a commodity, it becomes more of a software and orchestration type opportunity. Yeah. So where we're excited, I mean, there's a lot of hype on AI, and we've been doing AI for a long time. It's, we've been building, machine learning models. It's changing the way we have to work, because when you build a model, somebody has to maintain a model. They just don't. They don't work on their own, right? They got to be trained over time. So I think it's around data analytics and optimization across all of the hardware components that are out there now is the biggest opportunity. And it's kind of a converging space on the automation providers, because they want to bring in the software.
Right.
They kind of want to own it.
Yeah.
And then you got, more of your traditional systems integrators like the Bastions of the world. They bring their software. And then you got warehouse control softwares versus execution. So it's a convergence of all these things together around how do you use the information to optimize and drive better insights, I think is the real opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so key too, because we see, we see the hardware, right? It's very visible.
Yeah, it's
right?
cool.
Yeah, and it's cool, right? But
Yeah.
but underneath that, we need that software,
Yeah.
that orchestration layer to be able to make sure all those things are working the way they're supposed to work.
That's right.
And do the things we want them to do, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's getting harder to,
Yeah.
to manage that, right? You have so many providers, so how do you bring it together? We're spending a significant amount of time not only on the analytics side of it and data science, it's around how do you make sure not only do all the devices speak together, it's also then how do you maintain the uptime, right?
Right.
Because you don't want any downtime from any, whether it's a
No.
robotic pick arm
Downtime
or a
is
pixel,
terrible
AMR,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
warehouse.
But they go
Yeah.
down, right?
Yeah.
It's physical hardware, and there's a lot of component parts. And so it's changing the way not only how we manage the data, it's changing even our own workforce around not only relying on our suppliers to do it, but maintaining the hardware and then kind of managing and owning the software integration side of it's critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting stuff, and I'd love to hear, that you guys are continuously investing in that innovation and being able to keep up. I think that's such a key to being at this point, I guess, in the life cycle of life, I guess we could say, to be kind of a generational company and be able to continuously attract like newer talent and be able to do that thing in such a difficult environment to do that. So it's very great to talk to you, Gary, and very interesting to hear some of your insights and then kind of around what you guys have been doing and also what's top of mind for you as well. So definitely appreciate you stopping by the booth and talking to me today. If people want to learn more about Ryder, what's the best way to do that?
Send me an email, grallen@ryder.com.
All right, great. grallen@ryder.com. You got it. Blow up the inbox, right?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Gary, thank you very much for coming by and talking to me today, and hope you
Thank
enjoy
you,
the rest
Kevin.
of Manifest.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.